And welcome back to another episode of Preserve Health Talks. I'm Dr. Ira Perlstein, and our guest today is Ann Cater, resident sex therapist. And today we're going to talk about porn addiction, pornography addiction, and how it may be affecting everything from sexual performance to intimacy and relationships. So let's get started, and we're going to start bluntly. When we use the term and porn addiction, are we really talking about a true clinical addiction in the same way we think about substance abuse? Or do you think that label is sometimes overused or even misunderstood?
So it functions much like an alcohol addiction or a gambling addiction, but we don't classify it as an addiction. What we sex therapists refer to compulsive pornography use as, it's a sexually compulsive disorder. It would fall under the rubric, say, of obsessive compulsive disorders. So in the ICD-11 now, it's a sexually compulsive disorder.
Okay.
Is that a true addiction? That's kind of splitting hairs. It does, for some people, become so compulsive that it may be classified as an addiction if there's certain criteria are met, like frequency, like impact on work life, on impact on relationships.
Okay. So we're hearing more and more about porn-induced erectile dysfunction as well, especially in younger men. And how real is that phenomenon in your clinical practice and experience? And are you seeing that a lot?
We do. What we see is that because of the neuroplasticity of the brain, we get used to certain scenes on screens, certain novelties, certain scenes that we'd like, and we can't replicate that in a relationship with a partner. So we get hooked on those images, and unless we use erotic recall, which a lot of people do, we can't really function very well in bed.
Okay, well, let's go back to a very basic. Is watching pornography normal?
So
Is it healthy?
It may be. I have couples who use it, softcore porn in the bedroom just for some novelty. The use of porn, if it's occasional, not compulsive, and there's no impact on relationships or intimacy, I won't pass judgment. It's no harm, no foul.
Okay, so for our listeners, whether you're watching porn at home or whether you're not, at what point then does watching porn shift from being a normal or recreational behavior into something you would consider concerning or problematic?
Good question. So, when there is impact on intimacy, and in fact, what I prefer to call a pornography use disorder is an intimacy disorder, because we have people married, let's say men, although I do see about 10% of my sexually compulsive clients are women. But let's talk about men right now. So if we're using pornography a lot and have these images in our head, and we don't want to or get aroused by our partner, then there's an impact on intimacy, and then it's problematic. So, it's an overuse disorder.
Okay.
It's what it is.
Okay. I'm having visions of Clockwork Orange. Remember that movie from the 1970s?
Yes.
Okay. So when you're working with your patients and you find what we call a porn addiction, this is
sexually compulsive.
Okay, so this is a body-brain chemistry question here.
Yes.
So do you think it's more about sexual behavior, or is it tied to things like hormonal responses like dopamine seeking,
Sure.
or maybe even emotional avoidance stress, or
Absolutely.
even loneliness, or all of that?
All of that. So pornography rewards the dopamine centers in our brain, right? We get kind of a rush, a hit. Maybe we're doing it on the sly, and it's exciting. We get a new image pop up. It's like, whoa. And there goes our dopamine system. So that reinforces the use of it. And what was your second point?
Well, my second point is and you're working with patients, how does this all filter into emotional avoidance, stress relief,
Intimacy.
or
Yes.
intimacy, or
Yeah.
even loneliness?
So,
That was the second point.
That was the second one. Intimacy is tough, isn't it? Relationships are hard. We get into relationships take an enormous amount of work, and for some of us, we don't want to do the work. So
Okay.
it's so much easier to turn to a screen. I have clients who get up early in the morning or late at night to use pornography, and while their partners are in bed, asleep. So there's an impact on intimacy. And that's when it becomes problematic. And also because my guys often do it in secrecy. And so then there's we're hiding something from our partners, and there's the betrayal aspect. And when they're caught, which they often are caught, I say, their wives find out, they leave a screen up, it becomes a huge issue.
Well, in the state of Florida, there was a pornography law that was passed, and you cannot watch pornography from several websites in Florida that were formerly there. They've made it illegal in the legislature.
Really?
Were you aware of that?
No,
Yeah, absolutely.
only in Florida.
Only in Florida?
That's very interesting. What, specific kinds of websites?
Yeah. And I've researched this for this show.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the better porn websites was a website called YouPorn.
Uh-huh.
It is now illegal to watch that in Florida. You cannot watch it from a Florida. If you're in Florida and you're using a server.
Well, was there
in
something,
Florida,
was
you
it
can't.
illegal? Were there underage girls being portrayed?
It's not available
Okay, but why?
because the
don't know.
legislature said it wasn't.
Okay, so that's...
In a state where you can still marry your first cousin, and
Right.
that's legal.
Okay,
but
so
you
they're
can't watch
legislating
porn.
morality. So that's, okay, that's
Right.
Florida.
So that's Florida.
That's Florida.
Okay, but in other states, some of those states have passed these laws and some haven't.
Yes.
All right.
Illinois, where I practice, is certainly not.
So I'm not going to sit here and criticize or support the Florida legislature. This is not a political show. But I just wanted to make you aware,
That's interesting.
as
Okay.
in doing research with these questions and for this show, that was out there.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So in your experience, how often in the people that you counsel is porn use quietly undermining relationships that would otherwise appear, say, healthy on the surface? And second part to that, what are some of the early warning signs that couples might be missing?
Okay, let's start with early warning signs.
Okay.
Okay. There's, our intimacy is not there. We're not being physical with each other, or if we try to be physical, it doesn't work. We don't connect. We're not talking as much, not spending as much time together. There's an intimacy issue. And maybe at that point that either the male or female partner is using pornography for arousal and pleasuring him or herself.
Do you think that repeated exposure to porn
Yes.
actually rewires the brain
It
to
absolutely
think
does.
differently as far as expectations are concerned?
Absolutely. That's a huge issue. Because of the brain's neuroplasticity, the circuitry gets changed. And when we think of sex, what we want is what we see on a screen. We can't replicate that with a partner. The novelty, bells and whistles, we can't do that with a partner. So our sexual life with our partner is not very satisfying.
A lot of people think that this is a male problem, but it can also be a female problem. And what do you see as the underlying gender differences in watching pornography?
So, It's interesting. I haven't really seen gender differences. I have just as many women who are, I don't want to say addicted, but who overuse pornography, just like men. It used to be, I think women are underreported in terms of their sexually compulsive behavior because socially, culturally, we can get away with it. It's men think it's fun if we are looking at pornography. Women, we can have several partners and we're not damned like men might be. So we don't. I think the percentage of women who are overuse porn is much underreported. But I don't see many differences. Both sexes use pornography the same, maybe different sites. Turn you on, then turn someone else on, but it's very hard to generalize.
Okay. Physiologically and psychologically, looking at both of those standpoints, does heavy or prolonged porn use change
Absolutely.
with someone when you're being aroused in real life, and if so, does porn use interfere with that? And if it does interfere with that, can that be reversed? Does that question make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have seen men who are unable to climax with their partners in bed because they're so used to masturbating to climax that they have incomplete, ejaculation with a partner. So that's one way that their intimacy is disrupted by pornography use. So chronic pornography use is definitely going to impact negatively your partner's sex, no doubt about it. We get hooked on certain images.
And how do you as a therapist work with patients in reversing that?
So, first we do individual work with the sexually compulsive partner, and there is a 12-step program called SAA, Sex Addicts Anonymous, and we have sent many men there. It's like an AA program for sexually addictive behaviors.
And what's it called again?
Sex Addicts Anonymous.
Sex Addicts Anonymous.
And there's an S-Anon for partners. And it's really very useful. It's a 12-step program, much like AA. And for men who are really, I have guys who've gone to jail for looking at porn and unfortunately, images of underage girls came online and they kind of got hooked on that. And I had a Bible student who spent 8 years in federal prison because he was looking at and then exchanging images of underage girls. So it's dangerous. It can be very dangerous. And we get hooked pretty easily because of that dopamine reward system.
Okay. Porn addiction, watching porn multiple times every day, standalone issue or symptoms of deeper rooted problems?
That's a good question. I'll never forget the radio show we did, which was many years ago in Chicago. It was a syndicated radio show called Sex Talk with Phil Levy, who was my mentor. One of the first times I was on the radio, we were doing a show on masturbation. And it was a call-in show. And a young man called in and he said, I masturbate like 8 to 10 times a day. He said, is that too much? So, and we're on the radio, so we kind of like stared
And you're
at
thinking,
each other.
who has that kind of energy?
Who has that
right?
kind of energy? So at work, he was going into the bathroom stalls and masturbating. That's too much. That's an overuse disorder. Then it becomes it's compulsive. It's affecting his work life. Was he lonely? Absolutely. He was not partnered, had very difficult times connecting with women. And that's when we get into the intimacy issues. A lot of men who overuse pornography have intimacy disorders, meaning it's very hard for them to connect in a meaningful way with a partner.
Well, how does that compare to, say, previous generations? Because we have the internet and we have high-speed, endless novelty
Yeah.
and consistent and constant accessibility to pornography. How does that compare to previous generations?
So I remember when I was babysitting when I was 10 years old, and I would bring home a couple of Playboys for my brothers. That was what they had access to. Occasional, magazines, maybe some erotic literature. Nothing like today. We have, just like gambling now with, what do you call online, the DraftKings and all that. Have seen a great influx of gambling addicts because it's so accessible, it's so easy. Pick up your phone and you can make a bet on a team. It's the same with pornography. And once you go to a site, it's going to populate your browser all the time. And we'll get hooked. We can get hooked very easily.
So we seem to be in a cultural moment where porn use is often normalized or even encouraged. Do you think the pendulum has swung too far in dismissing the potential psychological or relationship harms? Or do you think not really?
So I think the relationship harm is certainly there. Psychologically, for people who are alone, not partnered, widows, masturbation or use of pornography, there's no impact on a relationship or on work or connection with others isn't okay. It's normal. But when we get into these intimacy disorders, then we have a problem.
So for our listeners at home, and they're wondering, does this apply to them?
Yeah.
What are the first practical steps that they should take, and what does effective treatment or recovery actually look like in the real world?
So, usually, men don't self-report. A wife discovers that they've been using pornography, and let's say they come into my office with their partner, and it's an issue, and then we talk about the relationship problems that may have led to this. And then with guys, sometimes it really depends. Sometimes we may give them medication. We may give them an SSRI. We may give them something else if they're really compulsive. But a 12-step program is very useful for them, and marriage and couples counseling to try to get the couple to reconnect and connect in a healthy way sexually.
Okay. Closing question,
Yes,
because
sir.
we're running out of time. And our viewers like to keep this under 20 minutes. Attention spans are short out there. If someone does identify that they have this problem, is it like alcohol or drugs where complete abstinence is typically necessary? Or is it possible to develop a more controlled or healthy, if that's a good word, relationship with porn over time?
So again, that's a really good question, Ira, and it really depends on the extent of the compulsion. But I think in a healthy couple, say, maybe we can incorporate some masturbation into our sex play, and then we don't have the shame around the masturbation, and it can be a fun part of a couple's sex life.
So we're trying to make these shows a little bit more edgy, things we don't normally talk about in an office setting. And hopefully this is one of those shows that is just a little bit edgier. We're going to bring back Ann Cater again for our series on sexual health. Thank you again for watching another episode of Preserve Health Talks. And if there's a topic you would like to hear about that you haven't heard about so far on Preserve Health Talks, let me know. We'd be glad to research it and bring in experts to talk about it with us. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you on our next episode.